Today, we're going to be discussing how to write a personal response for Year 11 English using 7 stages of grieving. Today, we're going to be doing a practice task. We're going to look at exactly how an assessment for personal response would work and what you would be required to do. Firstly, the parameters for this task. 1. You must reference story of a father and at least one other scene of your choice. 2. You must respond to the prompt. Today's prompt is discuss how 7 stages of grieving resonates with your understanding of family. 3. You're required to write 600 to 800 words. 4. Your response should include an introduction, at least 2 body paragraphs, a third body paragraph if you have time, and wish to discuss another story, and finally, a conclusion. The first thing you need to do, both in the assessment and for the practice today, is unpack the prompt. Consider, what does the prompt mean? How does the scene that you've been provided actually link to this prompt? What's the message about, say, family that is coming across in Story of a Father? Next, consider what other scenes from 7 Stages of Grieving might connect to this particular prompt. From there, you can come up with your ideas. If the prompt is discuss how 7 stages of grieving resonates with your understanding of family, you could break this into 2 different paragraphs. Firstly, the understanding that families create deep bonds that are built on history, shared memories, and hardship. Secondly, you may have developed the understanding that families can become disconnected. See how the ideas are different, and each paragraph still needs to have a different, deep idea. Once you have your ideas, you can start to develop a plan with examples. In paragraph 1, you're going to talk about how families are about building deep bonds based on history, shared memories, and hardship. Once you've given that topic sentence, you need to talk about an example. In this paragraph, you're going to talk about Story of a Father, but you need to have specific moments from this scene that you're going to delve deeper into. For instance, in the Story of a Father, the woman reveals her father hadn't stopped fighting since 1967, and that she is grateful she'll never have to live through what her dad lived through. This shows the woman has a deep connection with her father and his experience as a First Nations man who fought for human rights. She's grateful for the life she has and knows that this is the expense of her family's prior suffering. You'll then need to connect this to one of your own examples. For instance, in my experience, my grandmother passed on stories to my father and myself about World War II Britain. Now, I could go into much more detail about that, but it's not necessarily relevant. You need to come up with your own experience and pop that in there. It could be about yourself, but it could also be about a family member or some other story that you have heard of. Paragraph 2. Paragraph 2 is going to be on the different idea about how families can become disconnected. For this, I've chosen front and centre. You're welcome to choose a different story as it's free choice for the second paragraph, but I think this one will work well. I'm going to discuss that in front and centre, the woman tells the story of an old auntie who was impacted by the stolen generation and felt disconnected from her family. She never knew her family, and she attends funerals because she might be related. This shows that due to the forcible removal of children from First Nations homes, many people have lost their family bonds, and it's created individuals who long for family connection. Again, I've got my own example, but part of that when you're creating your example might be to say that you don't personally connect to the idea. However, Your family are close knit, and you could imagine feeling distress if you were separated from them, and give, I suppose, a hypothetical. So keep in mind that if you can't connect, that's okay to say that, but then you have to somehow make some very loose connection as to how you would feel if you did have a connection. Let's talk about how you write it up. Now, today I've provided the introduction for you. You are welcome to try to edit this to make it more sophisticated and feel a bit like your own. Or alternatively, you are welcome to copy it. You want to start the introduction with a thematic opening sentence, something that looks at the idea of family in general. You then want to address the prompt and then signpost what your 2 to 3 ideas will be. This is not too different from other types of writing that you've done, but keep in mind it all needs to be connected to the prompt. We want to see you unpack the idea here. For example, in modern Australia, families come in a variety of different forms, from families who are close knit and live together with a set of shared values, to those who, for whatever reason, are disconnected from the formative group who in many ways shape our identity. The understanding of family is individual, personal, and established based on exposure. In some cases, family deepens our sense of heritage and passes history from one generation to another, as in 7 Stages of Grieving's Story of a Father. However, in stark contrast, the notion of family can also be presented as isolating, creating pain and suffering due to disconnect as explored in Front and Centre. Make sure that you have these 3 elements when writing an introduction. Now let's look at the body paragraph structure. I've included some really basic sentence starters to help you keep on track. You want to begin your first paragraph with an idea or a concept that's to be explored. We've already settled on families are about building deep bonds based off history, shared memories, and hardship. Make sure you start this as your opening sentence. Then you need to delve into a specific reference from one of the scenes. You should be using quotes. For instance, you want to start your next sentence with something like, "This is depicted in Story of a Father when." Don't just give us a huge summary. You need to be specific. When in Story of a Father were deep bonds based off history, shared memories, and hardship formed. You then want to explain that concept and how it connects to the topic sentence. What does this example mean? What does it show? What does it promote about these values discussed in the prompt? Lastly, and this should take up a significant portion of your paragraph, you need to compare to your own experience. You need to give an example from your own life, a life of someone around you, or a worldly example which is similar to what was depicted in Story of a Father. You want to include details, when, where, how, to really give life to your own example. If you have these 4 elements, then you are on the right track. Your paragraph should potentially be about 200 words long. You will repeat this same process for body paragraph 2. However, you need to change the topic sentence. Something like, however, Enoch and Melman also highlight the idea that families can become disconnected. Again, you'll then talk about a different story and provide specific references and quotes. For example, this is explored in Front and Centre when. Give an explanation, and once again, come up with a completely different example using your own personal experience. Remember, it's okay to say that you can't really connect, but still come up with something that does show a hypothetical understanding. If your essay isn't quite long enough yet, you should consider adding a 3rd body paragraph. To do this, you would simply just select another idea connected to another story and follow the same process. Lastly, you may wish to end using a conclusion. The conclusion should have a general, broad statement outlining your overall connective experiences. You should be reflecting and considering how these experiences and differences could influence your interpretation of the text moving forward. Something as simple as Seven Stages of Grieving by Wesley Enoch and Deborah Melman has brought to attention the idea that family is a diverse concept woven with positivity, love, pain, and isolation. I have learned to consider family as a fluid construct, where across the course of life, I have so far been fortunate to enjoy stability and positive memories. Yet, consider like the characters in the play, life will continually redefine, connect, and disconnect the notion of family. And the final slide are just some examples of how you can use personal language to keep going. It's okay if you find it really hard to connect to each section of the text. It will be very individual based off your own life experiences and your own family experiences. The most important thing that you do today is that you try to make those connections where possible. Delve deep, give me detailed examples, and all the best in your writing of this draft personal response.